But I studied psychology. I lived with a psychiatrist. I had my own brain damage. I helped young people with brain damage. I tried, because I had my problems, how you could cope with it. I live in Holland, very open-minded. Yeah. So for me, it's something different, and I am what I am.
Yeah.
You take it or leave it.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. This is going to be fun because my guest today is Pien Perree, who tells me that she has a childlike brain, and we are going to find out why. And I think, I don't think it's as bad as she keeps making it sound, but she is from Holland and she has been living here in Cyprus for 22 years. Mm-hmm. She is a very, very lovely lady that used to come to my Global Woman Club meetings. And she is a health and communication psychologist, but she is not doing that job officially anymore, and we will find out why. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Pien Perree.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a huge pleasure to have you. You drove all the way from Paphos to Limassol. This is actually recorded live because very often I record on Zoom, but we are doing this live because you were telling me that you are what did you call yourself?
Digital moron.
A digital moron.
Yeah.
I don't think you are. But one of the reasons why you have this, I don't know what we want to call it. It's not a disability. I don't like that word, but it is a disability.
Well, it's a neurological handicap.
What happened?
When I was 28, I'm now 56, I had a very severe car accident. And I went in coma immediately. Ended up with severe brain injury trauma. I was paralyzed, couldn't speak, couldn't see. It all physically outside looked good, but inside I still have a very short memory. I get distracted easy, I get tired easy, and I had a lot of medication the first 23 years after that. So, that made my life totally different. And my ex, he was in the car and he knew immediately, oh my God, her whole life is destroyed.
We were laughing before because you are saying that you have a very short memory or you forget very quickly. And I think that's an advantage in life.
It is, in certain ways.
Some things, but let's be a little bit more serious. So that was really, at the age of 28, that's kind of, the beginning of a professional life, or you have just started your professional life.
Yeah.
That has a big impact on everything. And you were saying that you were, at the time, you were in love with a man who was much older than you.
Yeah.
He was in the car with you.
Yeah.
But this man had a big impact on you because you traveled a lot together, right?
Yes. And it was a very eccentric psychiatrist. People said of him, he's strange, but he heals. Later, when we became lovers and lived together, I never married, but we lived together for 9 years. Regularly, we also had meetings of all the psychiatrists of the area. And, the more traditional psychiatrist who's only working with medicine, he was already from the 80s very busy with yoga, with a physiotherapist, and, to find the integration of body and mind. Mm-hmm. It was very in the 80s, huh? So in that time, they were all a little bit like, he's crazy. But he was interesting man, and he traveled a lot. Mm-hmm. He was also in the Marine, in New Guinea. My English is not fantastic.
Your English is fine.
But he traveled a lot. He was born in Indonesia because his father was a lawyer, and they lived there. So in Java. A very interesting man. He traveled all over the world, China, whatever. Also as a psychiatrist, he went to symposia. When I met him, we also made some beautiful trips because we had no children.
Yeah.
And we had freedom, and he was wealthy.
Yeah.
I had my own work. He loved me to be independent and do my own things. But we had 9 interesting years. But we only got together at the accident.
Yeah, that's a shame. You were mentioning that he was born in Indonesia. And for those people who don't know, because many people do not know that, Indonesia was a Dutch colony.
Yes.
And many people who...
Nederlands-Indië.
Yes. So coming back to that psychiatrist because that fascinates me. Somebody who in the 80s already understood holistic medicine, because normally psychiatrists and most psychiatrists, even today, all they know is give a pill.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, this man, he studied in Groningen. And there was also how do you call it, biology and psychiatry. And then they asked him, do you want to become a professor? He said, no, I want to make a garden. What? He said, yes. And he moved from the south, or from the north, Groningen, to the south, in Breda, where I was born, bought a land, made a house, and then he made a big garden with beautiful trees. And his work was in the garden. So he was often with his patients in weeding, walking around in the forests, playing with the gooses, that kind of, doing yoga in the garden. So he had a vision.
Yeah. That reminds me of Milton Erickson, because I'm a hypnotherapist and I'm using the Milton Erickson method. And he used to sit in the house smoking his pipe with his patients. And that was his therapy, you know, and he was a psychiatrist. So it doesn't always have to be a pill. I think this is the biggest misconception that we have in medicine in general. Of course, there is always a pill, but there are many, many other things that we can do. And you have your own story when you comes to that. You were telling me before that up until how many years ago you were on a lot of medicine?
I think 23 years I used a lot of medicine. By the way, this Roelof is his name, Roelof 7. He said, I'm not against pills. In the beginning, when somebody's very psychiatric ill, you need sometimes, because you can't start a talk with a schizophrenic person or very depressed. So, but as soon as possible, we went to supplements and other things and talking.
Herbs, supplements.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the same with depression.
Yes.
Because when you are severely depressed, when you're clinically depressed, I think it's very difficult to just practice gratitude and go for a walk.
Exactly.
You need medicine.
Yes.
And that's what this medicine is made for.
Yes.
But not when you just have a little down because, you know, I don't know, because your boyfriend left you or because whatever.
Yeah.
That's when we have to take life in our own hands. And I think that is a very, very big difference. But let's get back to your story about...
Well, I was, of course, you know, after my accident, that's a side effect of severe brain damage. I was like a child. I was 2 years rehabilitating perfect. I didn't realize that my whole life was destroyed. He was a psychiatrist, wanted to share, couldn't, because I was like, we're alive, look, beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
We were completely in a different way. Yeah. And at that moment, after a year or whatever, I found out what happened. And then I severely wanted to stop life. So I was in a very bad state, suicidal. Yeah. Well, and then it started, all the medicines. And the problem is, if you use, now my GP in Holland admits it, but if you use 23 years, all kind of medication, it works against you. And I understand the medical world. I understand it. But this, I think they don't realize too much how dangerous it can be. So at a certain moment in 2019, I was 4 times severely depressed without any reason, with a lot of medication, even a nurse who helped me to get me mobilized. And then I said, and now I stop it.
It was a chemical imbalance.
It was totally, it worked against me. There was no reason. So then, and my father was the only one who knows the whole history. He said, I understand it. And then I choose to go to functional medicine and nutritional therapist. And that changed my life. I mean, I had to offer a lot because suddenly I couldn't eat cookies anymore and no alcohol, and I had to move a lot. Yeah. You know, I had to breathe different. I had to use supplements. I had to taper off of all this medication. And now, since more than four years, I'm another person, and all the cynical doctors are waiting till I, you know,
you flip back.
That I flip back again, and I'm like, okay, but I had a fantastic time.
I think this is so important to understand because there is nothing wrong with medicine, and medicine has its place, and every pill has its place. But the problem is the abuse and the very often also medical doctors, that's all they have. They don't have
Exactly. And I don't understand.
Yeah,
You know, I understand.
How do you sleep, or do you walk, or do you move at all? Sometimes there should be a little bit more questions, but it's also the pressure of time very often, isn't it? When you have a room full of patients waiting for you.
Exactly, I know. And there's also a new development. This functional medicine is now a science. Eh?
Yeah.
It's nothing soft. It's the science from America. And now the results come out. And now more and more people realize it's not blah, blah, blah. It is a science. And even GPs now understand, hey, we can use it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's all about moderation.
Exactly.
And I am sure, because you were saying because I've been to a naturopath and I had gone through a very good cleansing, but you can have a cookie once in a while. It's
of course.
Just that you shouldn't have.
I love doing naughty things. So in the weekend, she said also to me when I was in balance, listen, in the weekend, if you want a glass of wine or a cake to celebrate or a French cheese, of course, but in moderation.
Exactly. And I think that's what life is all about. It's about moderation.
The balance.
And when you've been naughty and when you've done something that you shouldn't have done, it just take a few days to be good. But
I feel it, eh?
Yeah.
I was a few days ago having a dinner with somebody with all kind of diarrhea in it. Yeah. Immediately my stomach is upset. Yeah. But okay, I liked it. You need to like life also.
Exactly. It's the price you pay.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about travel.
Yeah.
I have a whole list and I didn't study it enough. But you have been to many different places. Do you think that there is a place that fascinated you most?
South Africa and Indonesia.
South Africa and Indonesia.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago.
Doesn't matter. Do you remember?
Well, you see, with my memory, people say to me, you fool us. I remember, of course, things, but often with emotions. So very bad things in my life, I remember, and very good things. Yeah. And South Africa, I mean, my father had 4 children who all want to study, so he had not so much money for going to holidays.
Yeah.
So later that came, and this rule of 7, he had money. So we went to South Africa 5 weeks in 1992, I think. And Indonesia 5 weeks, the best travels of my life. And South Africa then was not like it's now.
No.
And I have a lot of South African Cypriot friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost going with them, but then Corona came, Yeah. I would love to go back, but there is a lot of criminality now. But it was beautiful when we were there.
I was there in 2011, and because one of my best friends celebrated her birthday, she made us all go there, which was fun. Okay, I mean, listen. I think wherever you go, you have to be a little careful, not just in South Africa. And yes, surely there is more, but there are places where you don't go.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they say to me when I ask, can I go?
If you really want to go, because it is just so beautiful.
It's fantastic.
And the Cape and the vineyards. And I don't know, I love South Africa as well. Yeah. In Indonesia, I have only been to Bali. Where else did you go?
Now my memory. We went to Lombok, Sulawesi, because he asked travel agency, make us a packet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lombok, Sulawesi, we went to Kruger Park, Cape Town, Johannesburg.
Yeah, now you're mixing it up because you were...
yeah, could be.
Lombok is in Indonesia.
You see? Yeah. That's my brain damage.
That's fine.
No, but it is. He made a whole program, and then but it was nice. And I remember once, it's a nice story, that we were in the Kruger Park with the big hippos.
Yes.
And you think of a hippo in a river, you had to stay in your car, but he was always naughty. So we went out and he made photos. Yeah. And the hippo, you think. And suddenly it started running. We were running for our lives to get in the car back. That was South Africa. Yeah. No, it's beautiful.
Being attacked by a hippo.
Almost.
And then Indonesia, but there were many other places. You also mentioned you went with your father to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, my father loved, after my mother died, he was having the best time of his life. My mother only made art constantly, and he wanted to travel. Mm-hmm. And then with his 4 children, he was traveling and put all his money in traveling. So
The best way to spend money is traveling.
And he did.
Yeah.
6 years. He was almost dead, but he insisted to go.
Yeah.
And then he came a month to Cyprus because he liked it to be nice with me.
Yeah.
And then we made travel from here to Jerusalem. And my father wanted to study history, but his father said no. Economics, good job.
Yeah.
So he always, loved, and he collects stamps his whole life. Because I said, Papa, why? The whole history of a country, the whole world he collects, is on the stamps.
How amazing. That's true.
And my mother was like, what are you doing for boring with all these papers?
Yeah.
But he loved history. And being with traveling, and Jerusalem was for him a very, emotional.
Special.
Yeah.
It is a very special
he was
place.
always my guide.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about something else. We're coming back to the traveling, but I want to talk about something that many women will be interested in.
Oh,
You say that you fall in love easily.
Too much.
And you get sidetracked by men.
A lot.
Like you follow men because you're in love, and sometimes you spend too much money on them, and you also spend too much emotions on them. And I am sure that I am talking in the name of millions of women. You are not the only one. But do you regret that
No.
you do these things?
No, I had horrible challenges in my life. I was more times almost dead. And I had a lot of heart pain because of losing men, too much. And even recently, an Israeli man. But I never regret.
You see, this is the thing, because should we just stop falling in love and
No.
life would be just so flat? I think, you are the example, the way you are. Okay, I've been married. I've got my wedding anniversary. I've been married for 28 years, so that's different. But, when you have to take risks and fall in love.
But I have to admit, I had too much heart pain at a certain moment, a few years ago. And then I decided, Pandelies, my insurance broker, I say it almost every day, he said, Jeanette, I know 20 years you're a man. They're all losers. Next one, don't fall in love. 1 year only friends, and then you can fuck him. I said, Pandelies, you can't say that. We are friends. You understand. So 11 months later, I had to pay my car insurance. I said, Pandelies, I'm 11 months. Take a year more. I did. 2 years, the best years of my life.
When you were not.
And then I fall in love again.
Yeah. No, I think it's just an interesting, because we are all human, and we all do things that our emotions we get carried away with our emotions. We cannot always control them.
Yes, but I must admit, in these 2 years that I had no intimacy with a man, I spoke a lot with men because I love flirting, like my grandma. And we can learn a lot of the logic of a man. Eh?
Yeah.
I'm more a man now.
Is there any logic in men?
Well, men, they are hunters. They do this. Women look to the evolution. They gather fruit and they have children. They can do everything at the same time. And in a certain way, it's, for me, useful to try to mix the male energy also. Because I got too easy with my heart lost, and that's not good. I have to protect myself.
Yes, that is very true. Very true.
So I try to learn from the men.
You think you did?
I try.
Now, you came to Cyprus, what did we say?
22 years ago.
22 years. Why did you come to Cyprus? What happened? Was it a man?
Yeah, 2 men maybe.
Okay.
One man was an ambassador, which I met, very interesting man. And I looked 3 years for his beautiful Guatemalan child. And then after 3 years, he said, we had nothing. Then I was in depression, and my best friend, I know her since 8, said, let's go for holiday. So we went to Cyprus.
Okay.
And then I fell in love with a man by the Castro Taverne. I had no jobs. I lost him. I lost a child. I came back and I stayed.
You stayed.
So it was
in
an
Cyprus.
adventure.
23 years
22 years ago.
22 years ago, Cyprus was quite different.
Yes.
Were you always in Paphos? Did you
Yes.
always live in Paphos?
Yes, Kisonaga, most of the time.
Kisonega. And tell us a little bit about life in Paphos.
Well, for me, I started to write my first book with this man in Spain because I have Spanish blood and he had a house there. And then that relationship stopped and I came in Cyprus and I stayed. But I thought, what am I going to do? My 4 jobs I don't have anymore.
Yeah.
My love, my child. So I thought, okay, I continue my book. So I came to Cyprus, then I was still very low in energy. And I loved the Sigasiga because it's very slow here. Holland is super efficient,
Yes.
nobody's time,
Yes.
all organized.
Yes.
And there was sun here.
Yeah.
In Holland, 7 months, it's raining. If you don't have work,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. I love light.
Yeah.
So that's why I stayed. And my father always said, yes, good choice, good choice.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, like today is one of these days, it's December, and the blue sky, I think there is no blue like that anywhere else in the world, like the blue sky in
love
Cyprus. Yes, I love it too.
Yeah.
And I think it fills your soul with what you need, especially.
And especially better brain. I mean, it's for me uplifting.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to be depressed when you have a
Yes.
sky like that, isn't
Exactly.
it?
Yeah.
Even though plenty of people still manage.
Yeah.
Where would if it hadn't been Cyprus, where else could you have imagined to go?
Spain.
Spain. Yeah, tell me about that Spanish blood. Where does it come from?
Well, a long time ago. The Spanish War, the 80,
Yeah.
But in the south of Holland, I was born in Breda, that's really Brocht. There a lot of soldiers stayed.
Yeah.
So normally Dutch people are blonde, blue eyes. But in that area, you have much more dark people.
Yeah.
And there it comes from. But I've, and already, let's say 20 years ago, no, maybe 15, I started Spanish dance because I love it. I have
Yeah.
the temperament. When I dance, I feel it.
Yeah.
And maybe because of my brain damage, I'm more impulsive.
Yeah.
And and with Roelof, we went often to Andalusia, to different places.
You could be Spanish. You look. You could definitely.
There is a tie.
Yeah. What about that dancing? Are you still doing that?
Well, I did it till my accident.
Yes.
And after, but my balance, you also don't see, my balance is not good because of my brain damage. And I do a lot of yoga, but even when you do the balance, I'm like this, or I hold myself. But the teacher asked me to come back after dancing, and I tried, but I forgot the steps. Short-term memory.
Yeah.
And when I turned, I was falling.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of dancing, but without a man.
Yeah.
Because I can feel where my balance is. And I love dancing and I do my Spanish thing.
Yeah.
But the dances I learned, I forgot.
Yeah.
And the balance I don't have. So that stopped.
We were saying before about looking at people doesn't mean that we see into people, because, when I look at you, there is absolutely no sign of brain damage. You look like a gorgeous lady, wonderful figure, tall, slim, fit, whatever. And we often misjudge people, don't we? We only see at people, we don't see in people. I think it's also important to speak to people and find out what goes on inside somebody's head. Because judging is easy, but then finding out why people behave in a certain way is a completely different story, right?
Yeah, and already this Rudolf Sever, he was important in my life. He was a psychiatrist. He said, when you break your leg, people come to the hospital and give you flowers. When you're depressed or have a brain damage or dementia or whatever, people don't see it and you don't get the support you need because they don't see it. I was paralyzed. I couldn't speak, couldn't see. It took 2 years. Now you can't see it, but inside my head, I have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And especially with lawyers, with doctors, with people in governmental. They think, oh, she fools us.
Yeah.
Because I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
But I have a lot going on here, which makes it for me a big challenge. And only my father really understood that.
Mental health is not just you don't see it, but it's also the stigma about mental health. You don't talk about it because when you break your leg, people say, "Oh, poor thing, it's going to heal or whatever." But when you tell somebody, like you are very open about your disability or whatever you want to call it, but I'm sure lots of people think, "Oh, she's crazy."
Yeah,
You know,
they call me Tre Leonesa,
yes.
and I don't mind.
No, but some people do mind because being and it's not you are taking it easy and you're doing it in a funny way, but there are many people in this world who have mental problems and are scared. Totally scared to talk about it because of the judgment that is
Of course.
that's given to people with mental problems.
But I studied psychology. I lived with a psychiatrist. I had my own brain damage. I helped young people with brain damage. I tried because I had my problems, how you could cope with it. I live in Holland, very open-minded.
Yeah.
So for me, it's something different, and I am what I am.
Yeah.
You take it or leave it.
Well, I think that's the best advice. We were not finished yet, but I think one of the best phrases in this podcast so far is, I am what I am. I am what I am, and take it or leave it. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Not everybody understands that.
No, and there are people who really hate me. No, because of that. Because they are like,
yeah, how can you be like that? Now, you do, I follow you on social media and I see that you do stuff. I mean, you're officially, you're not working or but you help a lot of people.
volunteer,
You do a lot of voluntary work.
I try to empower women, especially asylum seekers and migrants,
Yes.
who are coming here in Cyprus to build a life. Because in the beginning, 8 years ago, we were giving them food and, we gave. And now at a certain moment I said, no, they have to do it themselves. Yeah. We have to try to get them stronger to survive.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit what I do. And I also coach a bit, but all volunteer, not for money, I only model for money. That's the only thing I do for money.
You've been modeling for a long time.
44 years.
44 years.
I was the victim in the family.
So that is well because you have a figure to model.
Yeah, but now I lost so much because of my lifestyle. I was much fatter.
Yeah, you're looking great. But coming back to those migrant women, what is their biggest problem? What do they really, really need?
Well, it's not easy, but that's my emancipated or feministic view. It's not easy in this country as a foreigner, and especially when you're dark and you are asking for help, and then you're a woman, to get things up and running. And if you have children also, I am godmother of a lady who has 2 children. She's from Cameroon.
Yes.
She has now 4 children, and she's still waiting for the refugee status.
Yeah.
And it's a big, big challenge to get things done.
Yeah.
And, I have the idea that Cyprus in a certain way is quite xenophobic.
Okay.
And I even understand, because the problems now with migrants are gigantic for a small island.
Yeah.
I lived in Holland after my accident also 20 years ago with by an information center for refugees. Then Holland was very tolerant, so everybody was welcome.
Yeah.
And it was for me also voluntary work, so I could go when I was tired. And that is something, I want to help people in all kind of ways to get stronger.
Yeah, that's a beautiful trait. But what would you tell somebody who cannot help, who doesn't have time to help? Wouldn't it be just enough to be a little more kind?
Yes, absolutely. I'm every morning starting with a Café Melbus with a coffee. And then they say to me, "Oh, you're so happy." I said, "I try. I'm singing, I'm dancing, and I put my music on. And be friendly to each other. Come on.
Yeah.
Smile."
Because you're crazy.
Yes.
People who
And
are
I don't.
friendly. No, I know, but you see, I have this. People think that about me sometimes as well because I post all this stuff on social media, and I want to be happy. It's my choice to be happy.
And people get happy when you're happy.
Exactly, and it's my choice. I choose how I want to feel. This is something that many people don't understand. They allow circumstances to affect their feelings. But my trainer, Robert Simic, I have to mention his name here.
Yeah.
His famous phrase is, you are living in the feeling of your thinking.
Yes.
Your thoughts create the way you feel. So
Rational, emotive therapy.
if you don't like the way you feel, you have to change your thoughts.
Yes, I know, because that's what I did before my accident. I was training burnout directors, a man group, because they didn't want to go to a psychiatrist. I'm not ill. And then they came in a 10 lesson course of me. I mean, it's about this, what you say.
Yeah.
It's about
burnout is a modern disease, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like a badge of honor. Instead of, because not only is it, because it's also bad for your physical health. People don't understand that, you know.
Of course.
And instead of avoiding it, because you can avoid the burnout.
Yeah.
If you live a little bit more in moderation.
Yeah, but the problem is often people who are perfectionists, who don't dare to ask for help, don't delegate to other people because they all want to control it. They flip out at a certain moment.
And they don't have their priorities.
And then the whole family is in problems, and then they get ill, and then they come by a psychiatrist. I mean, it's...
And
like
illness often doesn't start with the mind, it becomes physical.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the men often comment, I have so much pain in my stomach. But that's here.
Of course. I mean, that is another story.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing, because I have had Dr. Igor on my podcast.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he talks about.
Yeah.
He talks about that famous bucket where we put everything in and then it overflows and then we have a symptom.
Yeah.
But the problem is not the symptom. The problem is what's in the bucket.
Too much ambition.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah. Well, we are getting closer here already to the end of this episode, but what is Pien going to do in the next 5-6 years? What are you planning?
I'm living very in the now.
Yes.
Very in the now. Yeah. I had to plan because when my last long relationship stopped more than 3 years ago, I thought I'm now going to travel. COVID.
Okay.
You know?
Yes.
Then I get all kind of problems with justice, let's say. And now I'm already more than a year, and I also tried to start my new book since 3 years. Yeah. So I have the plan to start my book, and I want to travel.
What will the book be about?
There are 10 books I can write.
Well, you should start with one.
Yes. And the problem is, because of my memory, once I wanted to write an autobiographical book, and then they said, this is already 23 years ago, a good friend, she said, make it short stories. Yeah. That's something with your memory span. So I think I'm just having to start writing, and then we see where it ends. Yeah. But it will be also about psychopharmaca.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And also about the system in Cyprus here, the patriarchal system.
Yeah, interesting.
And about refugees.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. So you should start.
Yes, I start already.
Short stories are good because people have a very short attention span.
Columns.
I think the time of those thick books, there's very few people who actually read thick books because they don't have the patience, they don't have the time. So short episodes, short stories, short videos, everything has to be short in this fast-living world. And you said travel. Where would you like to travel to?
Oh, I want to say Uzbekistan, Iran, all kind of... Iran, I would love to go already since 30 years. I mean, this now. My youngest brother, he can maybe accompany me on the trip. We went to Jordan. And then I have a man with me, I need maybe a man to do a trip to Iran. Or whatever.
My daughter was in Iran 4 years, just before COVID. She was there with her boyfriend, and she traveled all the way from Armenia by bus into Iran, all the way down to the south, to the Persian Gulf, and she thought it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So I can highly recommend traveling to Iran.
I just have to do it.
Yes. Now, Pien Perree, what is your message to the world as a last advice?
Live in the now. In 28 I came out of coma and I realized what your brains do, everything. And I realized how vulnerable you are. And it's so important. People don't realize. They go on. Always, especially in Holland. They live in the future or the past. I think live in the now.
Yes. And the now is all we ever have.
Yes.
This is a very interesting episode. This was a very interesting episode. She turned up here with a thick, eat these. We will just have a conversation. And this has been a very beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys, Pien Perree.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.